Well, friends, we are assembled here to offer our prayer and tribute to the memory of our very dear friend Ambarish Rai, who passed away a few days ago in circumstances which they would have liked to avoid at any cost. But life being what it is in the country, and particularly in Delhi today, we have to accept this grim reality and move on with our respective duties. For this prayer meeting, I have some 20 speakers. Each of them is important, has been connected with the life of Ambarish Rai. Ambarish, I will call him Ambarish because he was like my younger brother in many ways. I would request each of you to confine yourself to 3 minutes for your statement, but not in any case exceeding 5 minutes. I shall take a little longer, which is unfair on my part, but I thought that there should be someone who should give a relatively complete picture, and I have therefore taken upon this task. So I will read out most of what I have to say. It is indeed very difficult to believe that Ambarish Bhai is no longer amidst us. We were working together till he fell ill, but he left us while we were still fumbling our way towards arranging for his proper treatment. We had so many uncompleted tasks together to complete, and so many new initiatives to embark upon. A plan to which he attached great importance was to launch a nationwide back to school campaign after the normalization of conditions in the schools in the country. By any standard of judgment, Ambarish was an extraordinary person. He had no pretensions of being an intellectual, and yet he had fully grasped the critical role that education plays as an instrument of social transformation, for ensuring equity, for maintaining diversity, and fostering scientific temper, and an enlightened, broad-based, inclusive approach in matters of social and economic importance. That's why, after leading social movements in a varied field, he set anchor at the harbor of school education. He could be seen in the forefront of mass movements right from his student life. He became General Secretary of the All India Students Federation in Uttar Pradesh when he was only 18 years old. He became the National Secretary of the Federation 5 years later. Soon thereafter, he plunged into the trade union movement and the peasants movement. He became the president of the UP Spinning Mills Workers Union and a member of the Executive Committee of the All India Central Council of Trade Unions, AICCTU. From 1992 to 2000, he remained active in peasants movement. First, as the convener of the UP Kisan Sabha, followed by the position of the convener of the National Convention Committee of Peasants. A little later, he joined the movement for securing the legitimate rights of the tribals when he became the national president of the Lok Sangharsh Morcha, which worked for securing the rights and the human dignity of the tribals in Maharashtra and Gujarat. His love affair with people's movement for securing quality and equitable education for all the children of India started in 2003. When he accepted to assume the responsibility of national organizer of the National Alliance for Right to Education and Equity, NAFRE it was called in short. After this, he never looked back and remained in the national movement for securing the right to education and the universalization of school education till the end of his life. In 2005, he became the national convener of the People's Campaign for the Common School System, of which I was one of the 3 co-chairpersons, the other 2 being Professor Anil Sadgopal and Dr. Vasanti Devi. After the enactment of the right of children to free and compulsory education Act 2009, he along with some of his friends founded the Right to Education Forum, and he functioned till his last breath as the national convener of the forum. RTE Forum has become synonymous with Ambarish, and Ambarish, the Masiha of the RTE Forum. Those of us who are associated with the RTE Forum do not realize what stupendous ramifications this forum has acquired under the leadership of Ambarish. It has chapters in 20 states where it is fully active. It has links with some 1,000 grassroots organizations all over the country. It brings together on a single platform academics, public intellectuals, leaders of teachers' unions, NGOs, people movements, international agencies active in the field of education and other social fields, particularly UNICEF, UNESCO, Oxfam, Save the Children, etc. Policymakers, parliamentarians, and the media. I cannot think of anyone except Ambarish who could have achieved this miracle. Thanks to his RTE forum, thanks to him, the RTE forum was widely recognized as the most authentic and representative voice of all interested in the field of education. It was also recognized as a genuine people's movement for universalizing the school education. Whenever an agency, either national or international, was looking for a partner to work in this crucial sector of school education, RTE Forum was its obvious choice, and Ambarish its point person. He was almost universally accepted as the representative of the nationwide network of persons and institutions working in the field of school education. He was among the handful of NGO leaders invited by the government of India for pre-budget consultations and those held before the promulgation of important policy documents, including very recently the new education policy. It was because of his status as the authentic voice of the teeming millions who were prepared to make any sacrifice to give their children a decent education, that he was invited in seminars in places like Oxford University, in the Gulf countries, and to a workshop organized by the UN in Morocco. And of course, to a meeting held of the South Asian countries in neighboring Nepal. And at each of these places, he stressed in plain, lucid Hindi, which was translated into English, his priority of ensuring right to education and universalizing quality school education. Even though the representatives of developed countries and international agencies who were his hosts found his interventions sometimes irksome. In school education, he preferred to operate at the macro level. His main goal was to bring about changes in national policy to ensure right to education and universalization. His objective was to bring about structural changes in the school education system rather than to tinker with it. Not for Ambarish the evaluation projects which bring money. Not for him the delivery of services which a large number of NGOs provide in the field of education. Ambarish was never swayed by Slogans such as enhancing access at whatsoever cost, improving learning for the privileged few, blaming the teachers for all the evils of the school system, dished out by the government, unfortunately, and other vested interests like the private school owners and companies selling phony and deceptive learning packages. Not for Ambarish, the nitty-gritty of delivery of education, teaching the disabled, method of training of teachers. He wanted to leave these issues with the numerous NGOs working in these areas and concentrate on his main objective. He had, of course, brought these NGOs in his network. He had and showed great regards for them and broadly understood the problems faced by them. But his primary focus remained right to education and universalization. A few weeks before his demise, he was asked in a press conference as to what were his three topmost priorities. He said implementation of RTE Act, extension of the ambit of the RTE Act, investment for the implementation of the RTE Act. That is RTE Act all the way. This reminds me of what I had heard in my younger days when a senior Congress leader was asked in the early 1960s when Pandit Nehru was not keeping good health to name three possible successors of Nehru. The senior Congress leader named Nehru, Nehru, and Nehru. Among the specific problems of school education, Ambarish's concern was mainly with those which were of strategic importance for achieving the goal of fundamental right to education and universalization. These were school management committee, just for some examples, financing for education, abolition of child labor, and so on. He repeatedly organized consultations on these key issues. He relentlessly struggled for aligning India's child labor law with the RTE Act, and we all succeeded in that. He consistently rubbished the government's position on the adequacy of resources. He attached the highest priority to organizing and training members of school management committees, SMCs. In the face of government's indifference to the RTE Act, he saw the SMCs as a catalyst for implementing the RTE Act. He made this an important link in his massive network. He made them network of school education. In the context of the situation created in the country by the currently raging coronavirus pandemic, he dismissed the slogans like the new norm and inevitability of online teaching. He made clear again and again that online teaching was discriminatory and inadequate. Instead, he proposed imparting lessons through programs broadcast through the All India Radio and the Doordarshan. Unfortunately, this suggestion fell on deaf ears. Uh, he, his goal through his back to school plan was obvious. He wanted to put more emphasis on preventing the number of dropouts, preventing the girls to be driven into domestic service and to other professions. He waged a persistent battle against privatization and never missed an opportunity to warn the nation against its evils. He was hello. Ambarish firmly believed that the common school system was the best means of providing inclusive education and universalizing school education. I remember his upbraiding me several times because in my write-ups for the RTE forum, I would miss making a mention of the common school system. Ambarish was a great conciliator. The very fact of bringing together for a common cause in a single platform such a diverse group that is the RTE forum is a testimony to his role as a conciliator or consensus builder. This would put citizen diplomats to shame. And the remarkable point about it was that he never called it a common position. It was officially the RTE forum position, but essentially Ambarish Rai's position. People accepted it because it came from him. He never tried to impose his views on others, and yet it was his views that ultimately prevailed. This was mainly because of his modesty and self-effacement. Moreover, on the broad front, he was always bang on the spot. I have not come across an organizer of Ambarish's caliber among leaders of NGOs, mass movements, and government functionaries with whom I have worked. He developed and honed his extraordinary organizing skill through the crucibles of the student, trade union, peasants, and other movements. This was on display most impressively when, on behalf of NEFRE, he brought together some 40,000 participants from all parts of India in their umbrella ground to agitate for the enactment of the constitutional amendment to make right to education a part of the right to life as provided in Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. The very fact that he used to bring to Delhi year after year for the annual review of the implementation of the RTE Act, close to 1,000 participations from all over India, was a glowing tribute to his organizing ability. The annual review conference of the RTE Forum had been addressed by such personalities as Shri Hamid Ansari, former Vice President of India, and Justice Badal Lokur, former Judge of the Supreme Court of India. Among his outreach initiatives, he never forgot the media, with whom he regularly interacted, and he formally interacted with the parliamentarians in an annual and other gatherings in the Constitutional Club of India for the common cause of implementing the RTE Act. Ambarish was gifted with the qualities of extraordinary modesty and generosity. I often found myself at the receiving end of these gifts. Moreover, he was disarmingly self-effacing, and yet he had ambitions of his own. One of his ambitions was to write a book on the knowledge and experience he acquired during his journey in pursuit of right of children to education. Several times we fixed meetings between us to discuss how this volume could be structured. But for one reason or the other, these meetings we kept on postponing these meetings. And then struck the calamity with its disastrous consequences. How tragic that we have now lost Ambarish and all that went with this, including the proposed volume. Ambarish had some problems in expressing himself in English, but he had a wonderful command over his mother tongue, Hindi. He was a powerful platform speaker in Hindi. He had great clarity of mind and ability of marshalling facts. He was so lucid, logical, and forceful in his speech that he could keep thousands of his audience held in rapt attention for long spells. We used to witness it year after year in the review conference. I personally, and I'm coming to an end, personally, I respected Ambarish for his knowledge of Hindi. For I have greater respect for those who know their mother tongue well than those who found their relatively imperfect knowledge of other languages, particularly English. Ambarish was like my younger brother. To me, he was a prince without a crown, a rare gem of a person. My own journey in the field of education owes a great deal to him. After his departure from our midst, this part of my life journey will come to a dead end. For I entertain no hope of finding a substitute in this area. He is really irreplaceable. This is all that I can say this evening. I reserve for future the narration of my personal association with him and our working together through the RTE forum. At the end, I pay my deep respect to him and pray for the peace of his soul. And I also pray for his wife, son, and other members of the family having the strength to bear this great loss. Thank you. And I'm very sorry for this long thing, but I had to do it because of the compulsion imposed on me. Now I shall follow the list that I have. Just a minute. I first give the floor to Mr. Javed Ali Khan, Member of Parliament. Javed Ali Saab.